Prepare yourself for a story that will make you question everything you knew about ancient times. Forget what you've been told. Because what if I told you that the legend of the hungry creature, half man, half beast, hidden in a gigantic labyrinth on a very ancient island, wasn't really about a horned monster? What if, in fact, it was the perfect cover to hide something much darker and crueler, a machine of terror assembled by human hands, demanding young, innocent lives to maintain a sickening and absolute power, in a scheme so complex and terrifying that it makes the monster's legend seem like a children's fairy tale compared to the truth behind it? Long before the stories we know, there existed a place, a powerful island, surrounded by an intense blue sea, ruled by figures so influential that their power extended to distant lands. These people created an aura of control and wealth that enchanted and frightened those who knew them. But behind all the glory, the opulence of their temples, and their dominion over the seas, pulsed a system of absolute dread. To maintain all this and ensure the loyalty of their subjugated peoples, they invented a terror that could not be seen, but which could be felt each time the sea brought ships to collect their terrible tithe. The idea was that, hidden from view, in the recesses of a palace that resembled a labyrinth, a mythical creature demanded human tributes, a frightening lure to divert attention from the true horror that lay behind. These victims were not captured at random. They were chosen, vigorous, intelligent young men from other kingdoms, dominated by the island, who were forced to send them as a kind of frightening, annual gift to the supposed monster. Imagine the terror of these young men's families. Each year, when the messengers arrived, a chill ran down everyone's spine, knowing that someone would have to go, a life would have to be sacrificed in the name of forced peace. The choices were brutal and often arbitrary, serving as a demonstration of unquestionable power. If you do not obey me, your people will be the next to feed the beast. The young men were led away in a silent, hopeless procession, their faces pale and eyes wide, while their parents wept in secret, helpless to do anything but watch their children depart, never to return. The farewell was the end of their lives as they knew them. Once on the central island, these young men were taken to the labyrinth. It was no ordinary tangle of walls, but a monumental and disorienting structure that went far beyond a simple building. In fact, it was a complex system of corridors and chambers within a gigantic palace or fortress, designed to disorient and imprison those who entered, a symbol of absolute power and the chaos controlled by the leaders. Within this stone prison, there was no literal monster. The beast was the cruelty of the rituals performed there, the humiliation, the sadistic games, and the slow dehumanization of the chosen. Instead of being devoured, these young men were used in brutal challenges, forced to participate in dangerous spectacles, or even thrown into underground arenas against trained beasts, or against themselves, serving as entertainment for the elite or as a macabre form of extermination that ensured no secret would escape, all under the shadow of legend to ward off the curiosity of the commoners. The motive behind this bizarre and cruel system was much deeper than simply feeding an imaginary creature. The true purpose was to maintain oppressive power. The Minotaur's hunger was a perfect excuse to eliminate potential rebels, political rivals, or even to enrich themselves through the confiscation of the properties of the sacrificed. By imposing such a horrific and seemingly meaningless tribute, the rulers ensured the fear and submission of the dominated peoples. No one would dare question their power when the alternative was having their own children dragged into the labyrinth. Furthermore, the legend served to create a social purification, removing those considered undesirable or dangerous, transforming them into martyrs of myth. It was a perfect system of psychological terror, which made the victims themselves and their communities participate, even if indirectly, in maintaining the fear that controlled them. The people involved in this scheme were many. At the top, of course, were the island's rulers, the king and his court, who masterminded and oversaw the entire operation. Below them were priests or advisors, mysterious figures who gave the sacrifices a spiritual and inevitable aura, manipulating the people with prophecies and dark rituals. There were the guardians and executioners of the labyrinth, brutal and loyal men who ensured that the young did not escape and that the horrors within remained a secret. On the other side, the common people, both those of the island and those of the dominated kingdoms, lived in a mixture of paralyzing fear, resigned submission, and a profound, silent terror. They clung to myths to make sense of the inexplicable, hoping that the sacrifice of others would be enough to keep them safe and preserve their own children from the clutches of the beast. The people's reaction was a complex mix of dread, forced acceptance, and, at times, an impotent rage that needed to be contained. In many conquered kingdoms, the arrival of ships was marked by silent mourning. Families tried to bribe or hide their children, but fear of retaliation, which was swift and brutal, usually caused them to relent. The pain of loss was constant, but spoken of only in whispers. It was believed that the gods, or the beast, needed to be appeased, so over time, the annual sacrifice became a gruesome part of daily life, a macabre tradition. Spiritually, this created a religion of fear and submission, where divine goodness was less important than avoiding the wrath of the Minotaur. The people were taught to fear and obey blindly, for disobedience led not only to death but to the total symbolic annihilation of the person and their family within the bowels of that infernal structure, whose secrets no one who entered alive emerged to tell. Come to think of it, this chilling story isn't so far from us, is it? We don't hand over young people to a horned creature in a stone labyrinth, but we live surrounded by invisible monsters and mazes that seem to swallow people. How many of us sacrifice hours of our lives, our health, our joy, our peace of mind in the name of systems that demand more and more of us? How many of us are trapped in mazes of debt, social expectations, or jobs that slowly dehumanize us? Social pressures, the cancellation on digital media that feels like a public sacrifice, or the consumer addiction that traps us in endless cycles, aren't these new forms of beasts that demand our tributes in exchange for a false sense of security or acceptance? Think about how many times you felt trapped or consumed by something bigger than yourself, something you can't see or fight head-on. So, how did this revelation make you feel? Shocked? Incredulous? Tell me in the comments if this story took you by surprise, if you already suspected something like this lurked behind the legends, or if it made you reflect on the labyrinths and beasts of our own lives. Share your reactions and opinions, because your voice is so important. If this dark journey into the past fascinated you and left you thirsting for more mysteries, don't waste time. Like this video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything, and turn on the notification bell. There's even more shocking and fascinating things from antiquity waiting to be revealed in our next meetings.